The world was his enemy. Fears of avalanche and lightnings, of night-preying beasts, of venomous reptiles and other enemies of his hostile world filled his savage infancy. Ice ages froze his young in his arms and taught him to kill for furs as well as for food. He survived 4 interminable ice ages and learned the use of fire. As a physical being, he survived because of the physical power of his might. When broken bones deprived him of that power, he died a horrible death and passed his agonies and fears down into countless generations by instinctively inculcating a power of might complex into every cell of their beings. After many eons, unmoral man learned to herd in groups. He became civilized. Social relations taught him many things. He found a new power arising from doing kindly things which caused him to be liked. He learned that there could be helpful friends as well as hurtful enemies. His response to kindliness developed the slowly growing seed of compassion. Wisdom came slowly, wisdom gained by hard experience. Civilizations came and went. Atlantis perhaps, and perhaps also Mu. Then there were those civilizations which may be deeply buried under the Gobi Desert, many of them buried in layers. Mythical civilizations perhaps, but whispering mountain winds of China tell the story of very ancient civilizations which reached great heights of 80,000 years before that. Then came Egypt with its dawn of consciousness and the birth of character in man. We may say, perhaps, to all details prior to Egypt, but from Egypt, we may say perhaps to all details prior to Egypt, but from Egypt on we know pyramid texts, papyri, and hieroglyphics abound. It is written down in world history. We know the very names of men who lived and fought for social justice and honest government long before the pyramids were built. Perhaps it was there that the light of the torch divided into 2, one traveling east and the other west, to be mated 6,000 years later in the magic circle in which Antipodean poles are in America and in China. These are the 2 great powers which have least wronged each other and all others by aggressive practice of the power of might, and are therefore more free to give and re-give in balanced mutual flow of friendly interchange. Europe is too sadly divided by the unbalance of fear-born hates and guilty memories of the injustices of her empire-building days to become a focusing pole for the world thought of good. Through her, however, the current of that thought must flow in its world-balancing stream, and through it Europe will tardily find peace and freedom from her hates when she shall deeply desire to adjust her mutual group sins. This, however, she must do as well as all empire builders must do, for balance is the universal principle of nature which none can disobey and be free. Peace and happiness can come only to those who are free. Those alone are free who have declared themselves free through having found balance. Both America and China have declared their desire for world freedom and are finding their balance through the rapidly accumulating voltage power of the New World thought. But neither of these 2 poles as yet quite realized the omnipotentiality of that united power for good in the building of the race of man. Let us question nature in regard to this. The thought which traveled east and the thought which traveled west. The thought pattern of human destiny has 2 threads for the weaving of its dual pattern of a new humanism in a design of black and gold. Man in the making has patterned his thinking with either one of these 2 threads. The golden thought thread, in its essence, is that man is essentially good, noble, and just. This thought grew out of interpretation of nature as a bountiful giver of life, a prolific and kindly giver of her abundance. This is the golden thought which in the dark traveled east, sank its long roots in China, and created a race of believers in the good, who sought perfection in a system of exalted ethics, which attenuated the good in life on earth, caring not for an unknowable hereafter. These are the people whom the empire builders of the black thread thought have never been able to understand. To the West they were but heathen who must be saved from their sins and be made good by the black thread thought, fed by force of mixtures of gunpowder, opium, plunder, exploitation, oppression, unequal treaties, and territorial confiscation. And all this in practice while preaching Christianity and the efficacy of the Golden Rule to them through missionaries from the West, but not practicing it ourselves. These are the people who sought peace and gave goodwill, who met the aggressor with good cheer and absorbed him many times, who always turned the other cheek until even that was battered black and blue by the West, and even by her neighbors of the East who had learned the black arts of the West. These are the defenseless people who did not know what aggression meant until they were taught it by the West. And then, in the turning of the worm, the East is choosing a mightier weapon than all the armies and armament of the West, the weapon of righteousness, the sword of right, whose two sharp edges are ethics and character. The black thread thought, in its essence, is that man is essentially bad, cruel, and wicked, and that which is good lies in the hereafter, but not in life. He is even born in sin and predestined to hell. This thought grew out of man's interpretation of nature as a vindictive, ruthless, cruel, and merciless destroyer of life, forever preying upon her creatures with all of her mighty forces of destruction. This is the black thought which traveled blindly west in the dark, sinking its roots here and there in its slow western migration. Mighty empires arose through ruthless slaughter, through all the cruel practices of the black thread thought of adding to one's own wealth by robbing the weak. Man is bad, cried the West. It is his nature to kill. Let him kill. Organize his killing. The fittest shall alone survive. Make a science of wholesale killing and call it war. Legalize it to make the bad of it good. Sanctify it on our altars that it may be holy when we alone practice it. Let us ask our God to bless war and help us kill our neighbor. Let us get what we want by killing our neighbors by the arts of war. Let us defend that which we have, no matter how we got it. Let the arts of war be our greatest arts, and glorify our war heroes beyond all those who practice the arts of peace. Let there be no peace until we ourselves own the world and all that therein is. Then let there be peace, but not until then, good Lord, we pray thee, not until then. Yes, it must have been back there in Egypt that the torch divided into its two opposed poles of world thinking. Strangely, those early whisperings of the inner voice in man had no religious basis whatsoever, being purely the result of social experience gained by human relations, out of which grew a code of ethics instead of a religion.